Hello, hello. Welcome in, everybody. Nice to see you all. Happy Monday. We are going to be fixing your portraits today, and I see some of you guys are joined early. Hello, World of KRS. You can see we have an artist in the chat, and you are first. Yeah, we got it. Yeah, we're starting off with yours. Elise, welcome in. I believe I selected yours as well, so I'm so glad you're here. Calzoon, yes, hello. It is art time. Hello, everybody. If we haven't met before, my name is Faye, and I'm one of the instructors here at Wing Canvas. We have monthly streams where once a month we do a critique stream. I said scream, didn't I? Stream. Where we fix your artwork and answer your questions. So if you haven't had a chance to submit, you can join our Discord for the next opportunity. So yeah, Discord is the place that we are the most active. So if you join us on Discord and grab the opportunities role, you will be notified the next time we do one of these Fix-It streams. So head drawing and portraiture. This is a subject that I specialize in, but also one of the topics that I find is the most challenging. So we're gonna dive into what you can do to improve your portraits, things like likeness, things like structure, shading, and all of that stuff, because what we're actually doing is featuring some artwork from our community, and we put a poll out just kind of like asking what everybody, what people have the most difficulty in. And the numerous polls I put out about portraits, it's mostly around proportions and shading. So all of these things can help you get a better likeness. So World of KRS, welcome and thank you for submitting. This is like the only time where I was able to open everybody's submissions because everybody followed the instructions and made their their files readable by everybody. So yay. Thank you for doing that. I also asked for references, for you guys to send me references, only because without a reference, I can't really tell what you're trying to emulate. So I just have to find a similar reference in the right direction. So I've prioritized the people who sent me references so that I can give you a better idea of likeness. All right. So by the end, hopefully you'll learn a thing or two and feel a lot more comfortable with portraits. All right. So World of KRS, let's see what, so you were one of the first to submit, and you said, I struggle the most with shading, particularly where to place the shadows as well as the midtones. I also struggle with measurements a lot. So sometimes it's accurate, but mostly it looks off. And you said with this specific one, you had to use 6B, and then you think 4B and 2B as well as HB. Okay, so let's talk a little bit first about pencil pressure, because I love seeing traditional drawings on the server. So about pencil pressure, when you're drawing with pencil, I would love to just kind of make a recommendation on what I would do personally. I generally like to sketch in like a 2H to HB type of range, because, or you know what, let me even say 4H. Because if you start off with a pencil that's too dark, then you end up not being able to erase really well. From the sketch, then you can kind of put in your darks, right? So if you're putting in your darks, you can kind of use a 4B to like 8B. The greater the B, the more texture you get. So B pencils, you get a lot of texture. H pencils, you can get really, really refined you can get really, really refined shading. So B is dark and textured, and H, you can get more refined shading. So that's what I would recommend. So do your sketch, do your darks, and then you can go back to the H series for your refined sketching. Yeah, you probably don't want to sketch with mechanical pencil. I don't really recommend it, just because you don't really get as much of a range, but that's a really good question. And we have a new mod, and let's all welcome Kyla Grace. Kyla, thank you for modding. If you have any questions, hopefully she'll be able to help you out if I don't catch up with the chat quick enough. Okay, so one of the things I would recommend for this one is, first of all, I'm so glad to see that you're actually drawing over the sketch here. I think that the more important lines that you're drawing are actually like your blue lines, because your blue lines are actually, you're doing more analysis rather than tracing the outline. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to trace outlines. But what you do want to do is you want to find shapes and alignments. Okay, so you're kind of doing both. You're tracing the outlines here, but you're also finding shapes and alignments. So if I was tracing this, right, I would probably draw the entire circle of her hair, because when I draw the entire circle, I can see that it's not exactly half of the circle, right? Halfway is kind of here, so it's like a little bit more than halfway. So it gives me a little bit of information. Second of all, what I would try to do is I would try to actually draw in the circle of her face, right? What does that circle look like? And what does that shield look like? You know, where try to draw that ball and shield. So, you know, you're kind of drawing the lines here, but that doesn't actually represent the head structure. So you want to try and find even the shapes that you can't see, not just the shapes that you can, right? And then, you know, with the neck, like, that's fine. You can kind of find the cylinder of the neck. Some other important shapes to figure out is, you know, you have kind of the shoulders and the clavicle here that's showing up, and then kind of like the roundness of the shoulders and kind of where it connects, right? So finding the shoulder and drawing them out as balls, in my opinion, is more helpful than just kind of like drawing a shoulder like that. So doesn't that usually differ with the envelope method when you're drawing bigger shapes and gradually do smaller shapes? There's different methods. There's lots of different methods. I'm just kind of showing you my method, but keep in mind there's lots of ways to do this. Lots of ways. And so use whatever works best for you, you know? So if I'm trying to find the head structure in here, and I kind of look at this, the reason why I say draw the head structure is because then you can see the relationship of the size of your head compared to the hair. So you did an excellent job drawing the hair, giving it texture. Even like the texture of the pencil is perfect. However, the head size to the hair size is now a little bit off, right? Because you can kind of see, let me use a different color here. You can kind of see this is, let's just take a random measurement here. So we're going to take half of the width of the head. And then if you put that here, right, you can kind of see that you need an additional half for the hair if I'm going at the line of the eyebrows. Right, so we really just need to find something to measure with, find some kind of tool to measure with. So here we can take the halfway mark here, like let's say from here to here, and then find halfway. So that's pretty good. So then why does this distance here look smaller than in the reference picture, right? It's probably because the tilt of the head is not tilted enough, so that affected the proportions of the hair. So what you can do is you can just like slightly, you can adjust that tilt a little bit so you have the proper hair. But that's kind of why I draw the full circle, because then I have a better measuring tool, or a better way to measure, because I know what a circle looks like. But a half circle, like, is it a half circle exactly in the middle? Right? It's a little bit harder to figure out. Here I can also tell the neck is a little short, so I'd probably make that neck a little bit longer, and then bring the shoulders down. Because your negative space is actually just as important as your positive space. So the negative space is in here, right? So you want to account for your negative spaces as well as your positive spaces, just making sure that they are similar, because it's a really good way of measuring. So most, like I would say 90% of the tweaks that I make to your head drawings and your portraits are proportions. 90% have to do with proportions. Once you nail the proportions, everything else is a lot easier. Welcome in, Lilo. You have 46% battery. Hopefully it lasts a long time. All right, cool. So once you have that drawn in, then you want to figure out what the angles are doing. So the reason why I always default to the ball and shield, and I think you should draw the ball and shield for every face that you draw, even if it's obstructed, because it allows you to very quickly draw, you know, a center line to kind of show us which direction the head is turning in, right? If you just have a head like this and like you only see half of it, you don't have enough information to really know which direction the head is turning in. So in this instance, you can actually see that her head is tilting back a little bit. So this circle here is kind of going this way, right? And then you can kind of draw in her jaw. So that's really, really important. Reason being, if I know that her face is kind of tilting upwards, then the line of her eyes have to tilt up. And if the line of the eyes tilt up, then usually when you draw an eye that's closed, even if this eye over here on the left, like even if this eye here looks like it's a straight line, like it looks like it's kind of like this, right? You have to kind of choose a direction to push it. You either make it pointing, like going down like this, which you did, right? Or you kind of make it going up, right? You kind of draw it going up. And in this case, I would kind of make it going up. And that's because it follows the line of the structure of the face, right? Like if your structure is kind of all going in this direction and it's all going sort of like this, and then you draw your eyes on top of it going like this, then it doesn't make sense, right? The structure doesn't make sense. So you want to make sure that you know which direction you're going in, to then put the eyes and nose and everything else in the right spot. Let me know if that makes sense. You started to incorporate the ball and shield method, but also add the triangle method to keep the face proportions within it. I don't know what triangle method you're talking about. I have my own triangle method, which might be different than your triangle method, but regardless, hopefully I'll have a chance to chat about it today. Overall, I would say that your eyes, eyebrows, and nose, they're all a little bit too low. So they're all just like a little bit too low on the face. So I'm just gonna lower the opacity a little bit, and I'm gonna redraw it for you here. So instead, oops, sorry. Let me just. instead, if you drew out this ball and shield, and drew out this ball and shield kind of going this way, start off with the structure, and then you can kind of see that the nose is misaligned, right? The eyes, the nose, the mouth are all kind of misaligned. So I'd put the eyes over here. I'd put the eyebrows slightly higher. Eyes are generally halfway on the face. However, when a head is tilting up, they tend to go a little higher on the face, and when the head is tilting down, they go a little bit lower. But everything has to go this way. Everything kind of has to tilt this way, right? So then I would kind of put the eyes along here as well. And then the nose you can kind of draw like the little triangle of the nose here, and then kind of like draw in the nostrils. And then you'll see that the mouth is actually much higher on the face. And then, you know, she's got very, very dramatic lips here. So the way you drew them is actually quite good. It was just in the wrong spot, right? You want to make sure that there's enough room for the chin and everything else. So her eyes would be up here. The other eye would be here. You can't really see it. And then her eyebrow would be much higher up, kind of like this. Right, so she's kind of got that very sensual look on her face. You can put in a few lashes if you want. But yeah, it's mostly with the eyes. You really have to choose a direction, right? You kind of have to make the eyes either going down or going up. If you made it completely straight, then it just flattens it out. So you almost have to pick a direction, and I would go with the direction of the face. Here you've kind of drawn these angles according to the Loomis method. And so it's pretty good. Oh, I see the triangle method with the Loomis. It's kind of like this, right? Something like that. Where the triangle goes to, I can't remember if the triangle goes to the bottom of the mouth, or I can't remember. But yeah, the nose. Okay, so if you have trouble seeing which angle the face is going in, look at the nose. So if the nose here, you see the bottom of the nose, you see the nostrils, then you kind of know that she's tilting back, right? If you don't see the nostrils and the nose is kind of like this, right? You don't see the nostrils at all, then chances are the head is tilting this way. If you do see the nostrils, right, then chances are the head is tilting back. Unless you have somebody with a very perky nose, then it's a little bit hard to tell. Okay, and in terms of the shading, right now, let's increase this again. So right now, she kind of looks like she has a beard. I'm sure you didn't intentionally do that. You probably were just having a little bit of trouble shading the side of her face. So I would recommend using a harder pencil, you know, just using like a B pencil instead of an H pencil. I'm sorry, an H pencil instead of a B pencil. And that way you won't really have that issue. The way I would have shaded this is if you actually look at the reference picture, you'll probably see that the face, like if you had to group the face into different values, right? I wouldn't even count the cheek as a value. Like the cheek is grouped with the lights, right? This reflected light, let's zoom in here a little bit. So let's take a good look at this reference picture. Okay, so in terms of values, I just want you to squint with me. Squint with me and you'll see a light pattern and a dark pattern emerge. When you're just figuring out your values, I kind of want you to group your values versus seeing more detail. So when we group our values, I see kind of like a triangle shape here that's grouped in with the darks, right? I see a little peak here. This is all a cast shadow under the chin. I see a shadow under the nose, a shadow on the side of the nose, and this shadow coming down here along the chin. I see a little bit of reflected light here. That reflected light, even though it looks light, it's still grouped with the darks. So if you were to get rid of this completely and just like remove it, it would probably look fine, right? But if you made it too light, then it's gonna look weird. So it's good that like you're seeing all of the subtle details, but a lot of the times we see too much and we end up not focusing on the right things. And I think that's kind of what's happening here. So you can identify with like what is the mid-tone, what is the dark, and what is the light. And honestly, since you already have your mid-tone, like the mid-tone is really the size of your paper. Do you know what I mean? Like the size, like the not the size, the tone of your paper is already a mid-tone. So you don't need this. This is like, if anything, you would be adding highlights instead of more darks. So I would get rid of that entirely. I'd get rid of that shadow completely. And then you would have a much, let me do this on a separate layer. You would have a much cleaner look here without the beard. Okay. Even though you do see it, you probably want to get rid of it. And then just focus on the shadows that matter. I see that you're also trying to, you know, put in that core shadow and the reflected lights, which is good, but it's really not that important. What's more important are your dark and light patterns. So here I'm just going to use the darkest color to kind of show you, and let's use a textured brush. To show you that when you shade, you really only need to focus on the bigger shapes that actually will be better. Move that there and fix your proportions. So, yeah. It's mostly understanding, yeah, what you just have to do it more. I think the more you shade, the more you start to learn, right? You learn from your mistakes. If you don't do it at all because you're afraid, then you're not going to learn anything. But if you, you know, if you keep doing it and keep doing it, even though it looks bad, or even though, you know, you'll never show a soul because it looks wonky or whatever, every time you draw, you're learning. So, you know, try to see it as a learning opportunity, and don't be scared. Just allow your drawings to be ugly at first, right? Because like everybody starts there, and if you're too afraid to start, then you're never really going to improve. So I bring the shoulders down a little bit more, and then yeah, so you can see like I just kind of removed the beard, and everything else looks better. And then you can also move the nose over and move the eye over. So I didn't fix that, but I did do a draw over for you, so hopefully you'll be able to fix it. But with the nose, like the nose, you can kind of just shade in like this, like just like a triangle shape, and then already you're gonna see more structure than you would have before. So just focus on putting shading in the right areas instead of the areas that might be potentially confusing. Okay. Cool. All right. Would you say there's an easier way of drawing the nostrils where we can actually see the bottom of the nose? Yeah, there's definitely an easy way to draw nostrils. So the best way that, and I'll probably show you because we have a lot of other people to get through. So if you stick around, I'll probably show you how to draw noses at some point. But anyway, thanks for submitting World of KRS, and thanks for all your great questions. I'm going to create a group here so that we have everything, and then if you're on our Discord, I'll send you guys these at the end. Okay? Cool. Thank you for submitting. All right, and next we have Elise. Elise, I think you're in the chat as well. Elise, this is amazing progress. I've seen some of your, I know you've been a member for a long time. Thanks for all your support. And I've been watching your progress and just how far you've come since the beginning. So the struggle is, if you're not struggling and not suffering as an artist, then you're probably not working hard enough. Suffering is normal, and because we suffer, we learn, right? And like suffering, I think, is a natural part of life and a natural part of progress. So don't be afraid of it. If you're suffering, then you know you're getting somewhere. So let's see, Elise, you said, just kind of want to read your commentary here. You said you're struggling with the likeness. The nose is killing me. Totally understand about noses. The colors, they look off. You hate the blue, but everything else looked way too muddy, so you can't seem to understand how skin colors work. Okay. Texture. You don't like that it's so smooth and digital looking. I think you did a great job with the skin texture, actually. You want it more painterly and you can't quite achieve it. Oh, the blue in the shadows. Okay, okay. I see, okay. Also, how do you draw hats? Okay, I can go over that. The character's from a video game, so kind of tricky working off the ref, especially for hair physics. Okay. Alright, so your focus is the final piece. So let's take a look here. Let's see. So overall, I think you did a really, really good job. I'm actually going to show you a quick way of fixing your values that I think a lot of people, I've told this to many, many people, but if you're hearing it for the first time, what you would do is, let's say you're working on a drawing and you're having trouble seeing the value. All right, then what you can do is you can create a new layer on top of your working space, and you can just like name it something. I'm just gonna name it grayscale filter. And then you would fill the, like you can go here and you can just go fill. I'm gonna fill it with my background color. So file, edit, fill with background color. So now it's white. Now you can go and change the layer mode to color here. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a grayscale filter so that you don't have to copy and paste your image and then make it into grayscale. So Elise, since you're here, and those of you in the chat who are tuning in, let's do this next one together. Let's all give Elise some feedback on what we think she could improve on her on this portrait. And I will I'll give you my 2 cents. So first of all, I think that you're working with a difficult value range. You can see that there's nothing that's super bright. I think you did a really nice job with her face, with like translating all the subtleties of her face. But I think that the values need to be adjusted a little bit. So if I just kind of looked at, let's say like I just looked at her face, and I wanted to sketch out the ball and shield, right? Her face is tilted. You got that tilt really nicely. But what I don't actually see is the breakdown of the values. So right now it looks like, yeah, it looks like she's got a black eye a little bit. Yeah, because usually the bridge of the nose, like it's missing some shadows. It's missing some shadows on this side of the face, right? Like on the version on the left, you can kind of see it gets a lot darker, whereas the version on yours, it's a lot lighter. So let's first talk about how to draw hats. So the hat that you drew is great. It's just a little bit too small. So it feels like it's pinching her head a little bit. So what I would do is I would just make it bigger. So let me just right? I'm just gonna make it a little bit bigger. You know what? I should have done it differently. I'm just gonna copy and paste and then distort what I pasted so I don't get weird lines. Right, just needs to be bigger. Needs to be wider because it needs to fit over her head. Same thing when you're drawing this, you need to make sure that the hat, or whatever the position of the hat is in, it's actually larger. So it's actually a little bit wider. Right, so it would be like this. There has to be a little bit of a distance because it's got to compensate for hair. It has to compensate for everything else. So it's just a little bit small. So I would do that on both sides. I would just make the hat a little bit bigger, and it might make sense for me to just paint over this instead of trying to distort it. Just make it a little bit bigger. And then you can kind of capture the tilt of it a little bit more. So that looks a little better. The shading though, so right now, I feel like a lot of people, I don't know if this is you, I feel like a lot of people are scared to go really dark on the face. Let me know if that's you. Like, are you scared to go super dark on the face? If so, what is the root of that fear? Because like if you look at how dark this skin tone actually is, like let's draw a swatch here. You can see that it's like really, really dark. Whereas if I look at the dark part on your face, like the value is, there's a big difference there, right? So don't be afraid to get darker. Don't be afraid to go much darker. So I'm just gonna follow your lead here and choose this kind of bruised color. And I'm going to paint on top of it. So I'm just going to go in here and let's get really dark. Let's just get much darker. Oh, that's not a good... Let's do it this way. So I'm actually going to use the lasso tool here and just show you very quickly how I would do it. I put her whole top lip in shadow and then kind of just copy the shape that you see. Her ears also should be in shadow, like this whole part, including her hair, like this all should be in shadow. So I just selected it. And then what I'm gonna do is probably just fill it with a, like if I was painting this, I would just paint it with the color, but because I'm trying to fix this, I'm just gonna fill it with a darker color. And then I'm just gonna go in and multiply it and then just like remove some of that just as a really quick fix. Okay, this is not how I would recommend you do it, but this is just kind of how I'm fixing it. So now I can kind of erase some of these marks. I can soften some of this, and just by erasing it, I'm kind of softening some of this. But you can see there's a big difference. And then also, let's just make that full opacity. I'm also going to paint in the top here and kind of continue it all the way to about here, about the eyelid, because this is actually the shadow of the hat, right? This is where the hat is causing that shadow and nothing else. So now if I reduce it, right, you can see that overall it has more structure. So it's not perfect, but your issue was a value issue, right? Your issue was a value issue. It wasn't really a structure issue. It's just a value issue. And so, yeah, you can give that a try. You did the right thing by making the eye sockets dark. It just looked too dark because you didn't have anything else behind it. Right? You didn't have anything else that was like even darker. So you can make the neck here a little bit darker as well, right? So that it lifts the face from that neck. So that's what I would do. In terms of the structure of the face, I would give her a slightly more of a jaw. Yeah, so let's see what you guys have said. The cheekbone protrudes a little too much. Maybe it's a bit of drawing than what I think it should be, not what it actually is, sort of thing. Yeah, yeah, the grayscale filter is huge, right? So now if I put that grayscale filter on, you can kind of see it's similar. However, your eye socket is a little dark, so you know, you might have to smooth that out a little bit. But overall, you know, yeah, you want to focus on the shapes of the values by squinting more. The other thing is her neck. So right now her jaw and her neck feels like it's a little bit too thick because the jaw is a little bit too small. So what I would do here is let's bring out the jaw a little bit more, just like make it a little bit wider. Let's make the neck a little bit smaller. Just like a little bit so you kind of see that difference a little bit more. I noticed that her shoulder is also a little bit too big. Like put your hand around your shoulder and then like you can kind of see how big it is compared to the face, right? And because we're looking up at her, it looks like she's on a horse or something. Because we're looking up at her, her shoulders seem a lot bigger than they should be, but I would actually cut it off about here. So I would make her shoulders a little less big at the back and just kind of cut it off. So it just looks a little less awkward. You did an amazing job with the hair. However, the braid, you can also see the braid should be in shadow, right? So let's pump up this braid and let's actually get this in so that it's the same value. We're always kind of afraid to go really dark, and then we do, and we're like, oh, well, that's what we were missing. And just go a little bit darker. Right. So let's see now what happens. Yeah, see, that looks a lot more natural. Okay, and then about the blue shading, the blue you could probably do with a multiply tool. So, or a multiplied layer. So if you create a new layer, put it on, we can put it on overlay. Let's try that. And then choose the blue from the background. And we will then you can just kind of paint on top of it and see how that works, right? So you can kind of just like paint some blues onto the shirt. And if this doesn't look like the right blue because you got it from the background, or it looks too intense, then you can try multiplying it, because that's just an overlay. But if you try darken might work. You could also try multiplying, and that might be a little bit better. And you can try multiply and then just like reduce the opacity. So those are some quick fixes. And yeah, I hope that was helpful. That's all. If you think it's 300% better, I'm very happy. Jack fell down. You just submitted. I saw that you just submitted. And thank you for doing that. We will have more submission streams like this. But you submitted after I had already made my selection. So let's chat on the Discord though, if you can join us there. What's the best way of drawing the shoulder and arm? That's a good question. The best way of drawing the shoulder and the arm is to really think about, like at this angle, is to really think about the rib cage. So I'll do a quick example just because that was a good question. Like if I was drawing it, I'm just going to continue. Which layer is this on? Hang on, let me find the right layer so that I'm not... Okay, it's on the Elise layer. Okay. So if I was kind of drawing in the neck here, and I can kind of see that we're looking up at them, right? So then her rib cage would probably look like this, something like this. And I only know how to draw this out of my head because I've done so many of these. But what you really want to do is like figure out where the rib cage is, and then you can kind of find the clavicle, then you can find, you know, where the shoulders are. And then you can kind of draw in the arm, right? You can kind of draw in, okay, this is what her arm is doing. And you can start to draw in the cylinder of her arm, so that now you know how, you know, what her body is doing. So connecting heads to necks is also something that I really, really notice with a lot of people that they struggle with. So definitely practice, and you can check out some of our figure drawing tutorials on the channel because I talk about this every single time. I feel like I say it a million times. Does the portrait have to be a reference? It does not. You can make it up, but even if you're making it up, you should still be using references if it's a difficult angle, or if you want to capture somebody's likeness, because drawing portraits without a reference, especially if you're a beginner, is not a good idea. Yeah, I'm just gonna put it like that. It's not a good idea. You don't have enough in your visual library to do a good job. If you're just a beginner. So unless you've been drawing portraits for many, many years, I would definitely suggest using a reference, or at least starting there. So Elise, thank you so much for submitting. This looks great, and I can't wait to see it all finished. Yeah, thanks for submitting. Thanks for your support, being a member, and I will see you in the next one, or if you're gonna stick around, you're more than welcome. You appreciate it? Appreciate you! Alright, and hopefully you got some good feedback from the chat as well. Okay. So, next up... Oh, let me organize my layers here. Just gonna put this in a group. And I'll send you guys these at the end or after the stream. All right, next, Skyler. Skyler, are you in the chat? We're summoning you. Skyler, one of our wonderful students, I have worked with you personally and seen so much progress. I love reading your ideas and your new, especially like your comic with all of the kooky characters in it. I love it. So thank you for submitting. I love that you did exactly what we asked. You included the references that made up this drawing, and just wanted to respond to Silo doing? Did I say that right? Anyway, when you said, does the portrait have to be a reference? It doesn't. You can make it up. And this is a perfect example of how Skyler had an idea and chose references to really get that idea across. So you did a really, really good job. Thank you for including your references. It gives me a lot of information to help you. Okay, so Skylar, the first thing is, great job. This portrait is so funny. It makes me laugh, and anything that makes me laugh is already a winner in my books. I think it's hilarious, and I think it's awesome. And you should be very proud of it already. I only have a few comments on what you can do to fix it. And so I'm just gonna do just like a quick, some quick sketching, and then kind of show you what you can do. So first of all, I think you captured the expression really well, especially the mouth. That mouth is so hard to do, and I think you did a great job. The one thing I would take a look at is kind of the shading on the nose, as well as the eyebrows. So those are the two areas that I think you could improve on. So first of all, the nose. We understand that the nose has a structure that's like somewhat like this, right? It's like a prism. So it's kind of like this. You can kind of see both sides. And then there's like a ball on the tip of the nose. And then there's like these two other smaller balls on the other side that kind of make up the structure. And then the nostrils go underneath somewhat like this, right? So then if you break it down into forms like this and you say, okay, the lighting is coming from this side, right? We want to make sure that the lighting is consistent. So if you look at this guy, he's kind of got a little bit of a like an Owen Wilson kind of nose, where it's like a little bit broken. Like this line isn't exactly straight. So there are nuances, right, to every single person. However, if we just wanted to simplify this into the most basic structure, then if you know how to shade a sphere, it's like this in that lighting, right? So then you would just do this, and you can see that the bottom of this ball is shaded, and then the bottom of this nose is probably dark as well. And then this guy, his nose is more like this. So it kind of, you can see his nostrils, and you can kind of see the ball of his nose dipping down lower than the nostrils, right? So you can move around those shapes any way you need to kind of make it work for you. But generally speaking, you don't need to shade this side as well, because then you're getting that shading a little bit confused, right? So I would just put shading on one side. So what I'm gonna do for you here is just kind of like remove this shading altogether, or lighten it. So I'm just gonna use the value of the paper and just kind of like lighten it up, because you don't need it. You don't need it, and you still feel the structure of the nose, right? You kind of still feel it. Our brains have a funny way of just kind of like telling us when we need to add detail, and when there's no detail at all, we can still piece together the picture, which is pretty cool. So you see, when you remove it, it's actually a little bit better. Okay, so we're gonna remove that shading, because our eyes will fill it in. Our brains will be like, we know that there's another side to this nose, right? And then I would just kind of focus on getting the structure right instead. The other thing is the eyebrows. So right now you have your eyebrows drawn kind of like this. Let's see here. You kind of have your eyebrows drawn like this. Okay. And there's a very subtle thing that happens when you draw eyebrows like this, and you're not really focusing on putting the crest of the eyebrow in the right place. Now, a typical eyebrow from the front looks a little bit like this. Now, I'm not saying everybody's eyebrow is like this, but let's just say your average eyebrow. Okay, so your average eyebrow has a peak that is about 2/3 of the way towards the end. 2/3 of the way towards the end, not 2/3 of the way at the beginning. This one over here is 2/3 of the way towards the middle of the face, and not towards the end of the face. So it ends up looking kind of weird, right? You may not notice it, but there's something that's like a little bit off. And this one is like halfway. And when you go halfway, like this one is 2/3 going the wrong way, and then the other one is halfway. Right? This one is going like this, and this one, and I'm pointing out these tiny little details because they make a big difference. When you draw eyebrows that are kind of halfway, it tends to look a little clown-like. You know those like clowns that have their eyebrows like this? You know, like the, you know what I'm talking about, the clown nose. Or the mimes, right? They kind of have their eyebrows kind of drawn on like this. Very silly. And although I'm saying like it's not, there will be a person out there that has eyebrows that don't follow the norm, but most of the time they do, especially when they're emoting, right? Like when somebody is expressing emotion, then they usually have more kind of exaggerated features. And so I'm gonna redo this eyebrow here using your dark, and I'm just gonna kind of draw them much higher to create more of that element of surprise. Right, this one almost kind of blends into the shading on the side here, so I'm just gonna really play up his eyebrows as much as you can. You can even make them higher than in the reference picture if you want to exaggerate. Okay, and now you can see like this was before and this is after, and you can really see like that expression is so much more clear. That element of surprise and goofiness is so much more clear simply because of the eyebrows. Like we did something with the nose as well, but it's just a big difference, right? The other thing I would try to incorporate is when you're, I don't know how much you want to exaggerate this. Let's see. You wanted to use this portrait as an asset in my annotated guides as an expression of what? Why could this happen to me? In the more sarcastic sense, which is why I use the Josh Robert Thomas reference as a meme approach. Okay, so perfect. So I think if you fix the eyebrows, you might start to notice that the forehead is a little bit short. Remember what we talked about with hats, right? Elise was drawing hats as well, and notice that the hat felt like it didn't fit on the head. Well, I feel like his hat is a little bit tight, and I feel like if you want it to be a bit more realistic, what I would do is I would actually move it up. So I'm gonna select this and copy paste, and now I'm gonna move this up, and I'm probably gonna move it up to about there. Up to there. Yeah. And I'm just gonna merge it with this layer here, and so you can kind of see what I did at a glance. So I moved his eyebrows up, and I gave him a little bit more space for his brain, because his cranium has to sit somewhere, right? So then I would, let's just paint out some of these wrinkles, but I think you could add some wrinkles depending on the age of the person that you're drawing. You can definitely include some wrinkles, or even like a little bit of hair, to kind of push the expression a little bit more. So like you could, let's see, you can kind of like add, you know, some wrinkles depending on, again, like depending on what you're going for with your character. But if you're drawing hair, hair is usually bigger. If you're drawing hats, hats are usually bigger than what you think, right? And then you can kind of give this like bulky, like I really like the bulkiness of this. It gives it that more like realistic hat feeling. So you can kind of play that up as well. All right. Really, really nice work. Thank you for submitting, Skylier. I think for all of you who have submitted, your submissions help other people who might be a little bit too shy, who may not be there yet. It helps them tremendously just kind of get an idea of how to improve. So thank you so much for submitting and helping others. And thanks, Skylier, for being such a great student. Okay, the other thing I'm going to do is just make the top of the eyes a little bit darker. And one last thing that you could consider is you could consider making the pupils a little bit smaller, because a little bit smaller will add to that element of surprise. Whereas if you made them a little bit bigger, then they kind of look a bit like more kind of innocent looking, but it depends. You can play around with making the pupils bigger or smaller. If they're smaller, they tend to be more fearful, and if they're bigger, they tend to be kind of more excited. So you can kind of play around with how big you want the pupils to be. All right, cool. Again, I'll do the before and after. Whoops. Here's the before, and here's the after. Jack Fell Down says the cheek on the thin side is pushing in. Though I think a bit more exaggeration would help, but the pushing out on the other side is not visible. Yeah, that's a really, really good point. The jaw here, like his jaw is distorted. I think this is what you mean, right? Like his jaw kind of comes out this way because of what he's doing with his mouth, right? So in that case, you might want to draw the hat to kind of support that, right? To kind of exaggerate the distortion of his face. That was a really, really good suggestion. Thank you very much. All right. Yeah, it is a very, very fun face here. Clothing details going hard in this one. Yeah, this is a tough one. Tough one to do. But I think you did a really, really nice job, Skylier. Okay, let's group this. And everybody, thank you, Skylier, for submitting. And putting yourself out there. All right. Okay, we're making pretty good time here. Next we have Suga. Sugar? Let me know if you're here in the chat. Suga, thank you for including your reference. I think that is really helpful to see. And it looks like you're working on just kind of like a straight painterly face, and it looks like you've kind of gone back and forth, and you're really treating it like a painting, which is great. Like you're not just kind of filling in a drawing, but you're actually painting it in, and that's really, really nice to see. Sugar, you said, I'm struggling to find something. Roast my art. Give me every mistake. I don't care. Also, I don't know what to do. I practice mass drawing, but my fundamentals aren't stable, so I can't find an art style yet, but I tried mixing mass and line drawing. Turns out I shouldn't yet. Don't be so hard on yourself. So first of all, if you think you're a beginner, this is really good. This is like really, really good for a beginner. Or when you say your fundamentals aren't stable yet, that's okay. Right? Like fundamentals are a forever thing, and tools change and aesthetics change and trends change, right? So even as a professional artist, we have the fundamentals under our belt, but there's always things that we can work on. So don't worry about that. You're on the right path. You can't find an art style yet. Don't worry about that. Your art style is going to come naturally. You don't really need to worry too much. Okay, so let's dig into this. Okay, so first of all, this is really, really, really nice. I really love seeing your brush strokes. I think that looks awesome. And let's get into how we can fix it. So I think your likeness is pretty good. And all things considered, it's a really, really good start. If you are here in the audience, let me know if you have any feedback for Sugar, because sometimes, you know, you can see something that I don't see. So, quick draw over for you. I think that overall, the likeness is pretty good. The shapes are pretty good. I love that you're using angles here to express the turning of the form rather than just using a, you know, a curve. So that's really good. You're doing a lot of things right. I think just at a glance, the head is not as wide, which is fine. I think you still captured a good likeness. The eye, your eye shape and this eye shape is slightly different. So her eye shape in the reference is kind of like this, right? Notice where the peak is. It's kind of, I would say, about there, right? It's like roughly at the corner. Whereas if I look at your eye, you've kind of drawn an eye like this, which is very similar to an eye from the front. And so your eye peak is actually in the middle. It's actually here. And you don't want to do that because it looks like an eye from the front, even though it's not. This is more of like a 3/4 view or a profile where the eye starts to get shorter and shorter. So the left eye is already 3/4 of the length of a normal eye. And then the eye on the right, the shape of it is kind of like this, right? It's more like this. And so it's even shorter. And so I can kind of see you're doing two things. One is you're having trouble drawing eyes from the side, so I would recommend doing more eye studies. And then you're also making this eye smaller. So let me just grab a different color. You're actually, let's use like a bright pink. This eye shape right now is somewhat correct, but it's a little bit too small compared to this shape here. So if I just drew triangles, you should already be able to tell if it's accurate or not. Like I can do it to her and you'll be able to see. Right? You can kind of see, like even if I turn this off, you can kind of see that the triangles here look realistic, right? They look like this. Whereas like the triangles on your eye look a little bit cartoony. Do you notice that? It's so subtle. It's just the shift of where that peak of the eye is. And so that's the major thing that you can fix to make your portrait drawing better. The other thing that I see, let me just move this down. Okay. All right. The other thing that I see is that the alignment. So right now, if you look for alignments on her face and you look at the corner of her eyes, the corner of your eye typically aligns with the corner of your nose. This is typical, okay? However, you can kind of see that her nose is a little bit smaller than the, or a little bit shorter to that alignment, whereas her mouth aligns over here and her nose kind of aligns over here, but they're relatively on a straight line, right? You can kind of see that. Whereas when you measure it out on yours, you can kind of see that they're all on the same line, like exactly on the same line. The angle is good. I think you noticed that alignment. However, the tweak of it, you can kind of tweak it a little bit more. Just those tiny tweaks will make a big difference, right? A bit more sharpness on the far cheekbone. Okay. Yeah. I like the tilt of the head here. Usually people mess it up and make the head straighter, but this one captures it well. That's right. You did a really good job capturing the tilt. Okay. So, I think what you could do, here is just make some tiny adjustments. So let me turn this off and let's move this eye. So I'm gonna move this entire eye. I know some of you said use the liquify tool, but those of you who are drawing traditionally, who may not have that access to that and might have to do it all on their own, it's a little bit harder. So I'll use the liquify tool, but I don't want to rely on it. It's definitely a good tool. Definitely has saved my butt a couple times. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is just kind of like soften these eyebrows and just repaint. Just gonna paint over this part a little bit. The other thing I see that you're doing is you're kind of using too many values, and you're using brushes that are too small. And yeah, you're using brushes that are too small and using too many values, and so you end up getting kind of like blotchy, like it's a little bit blotchy, right? So try to use the biggest brush. Like, look at the size of my brush here. Try to use the biggest brush that you could possibly get away with. This is for traditional painters as well. Use the biggest brush that you can possibly get away with instead of using small brushes, because your small brushes are going to make your lines feel very timid, or like almost like you're always second guessing yourself. Whereas when you use bigger brushes, it forces you to simplify, and it forces you to make better decisions, right? So you can see when I move the eye over, it starts to look, you start to see that roundness more. So I'm just going to make it a bit more angled at the top there. Make sure that when you're drawing eyes, that they're the same height. Even at awkward angles like this, they should be at the same height. Not at the same width, but definitely the same height. Okay. So there, I just kind of fixed the eye proportions. The nose is looking pretty good, but it feels like you're a little bit unsure. So I'll give you one suggestion for the nose is when you're painting the nostril, use like a reddish color to paint to do the nostril, and then just kind of like make sure that the top of the nose is, or like the top of the nostril has a hard edge, and then the inside of the nostril has a much softer edge. So like you can see that hard edge right at the top, but then it fades and it gets a little bit softer. So you can see I made a really hard edge there, and that's like really sticking out because everything else on your piece is soft. But don't be afraid to use hard edges. Don't be afraid to paint with brushes with hard edges and bigger brushes. So I'm just gonna kind of fix it here. You don't actually see the other nostril, so you don't need to draw it. I can kind of see you're like trying to draw it, and I don't think it's actually accurate, so I wouldn't put that in. With the mouth, there's a couple things that you can do with the mouth that can really push the envelope a little bit. So the mouth, you can kind of see that your expression is a little bit different than her expression. She's got more of a neutral face, but she's not sad. And in yours, it looks a little bit sad. And that's because her mouth is, even though it's curving down, right? Her mouth is curving down. So does that mean that she's sad? Not really. It's curving down because you know, we can see the bottom of her chin. So that means everything along her face is tilting down, including her mouth, right? So you can actually draw somebody smiling, but with their mouth tilting down, and all you need to do is draw the corners of the mouth tilting up a little bit. And so that's what I would do here. I would kind of, you know, tilt the corners of the mouth up just a tiny bit, so that when you do the rest of the mouth, she doesn't look really sad. And that she looks, oh, just like slightly happier. I'm going to just kind of paint in the lips. The upper lip is almost always darker than the bottom lip, and that's just because of the curve of the bottom lip catches more light than the top lip. So if you're shading lips, you always want to make the top lip a little bit darker, right? And then the bottom lip a little darker as well. But if you just kind of tilt the corners of the lips up a little bit, it'll make a big difference in her expression. Yeah, she looks like she has a neutral face. Yeah, she does. She does. And so, yeah, I like your portrait a lot. I think you've captured a really, really good likeness. Again, just tiny, tiny tweaks. And you got a banger there. Just keep practicing. Thank you for submitting, Sugar, and I hope that I see you on the Discord and I see your changes. So here's a before and an after. Just a little bit of tweaking. All right. Let's give you your own group. Gotta keep my layers organized so I don't draw on the wrong layer. All right, next up, Cookie. Is it Cookie or Biscuit, or is it Cookie and Biscuit? Cookie or Biscuit? Is it? Do I call you one or the other, or is it both? I'm not sure, but Cookie or Biscuit. We've drawn this guy before in classes. I've definitely seen Josh draw him in a mentorship class. His face is very familiar. He's got that kind of like Addams Family. What's that guy's name? Is it Lurch? I can't remember. The really, really tall guy. He's kind of got that kind of look. He's got a great face. And so I'm really, really glad to see you drawing this and attempting this. So nice progress so far. You said the shadows gave me a hard time. I wanted the colors to pop. That's why I used blue shadows. Okay. The right side of the face in the shadows feels flat. The sketch around the lips had more resemblance, which I couldn't carry forward in the rendering and got tired of it. I have done watercolors in traditional art and recently started doing digital art. Okay, so you have a background in traditional and now you're doing digital. That's great. I would invite all digital artists to also try traditional. The skills are directly translatable. So, first of all, I think this is a really good start. I don't know how many portraits you do on a regular basis, but this is pretty good. You've already captured a good likeness. Let's turn on our grayscale filter here. See, I still have this handy dandy grayscale filter. And let's have a look at the different values or the value differences. I think that most people, when they're shading and they're not super confident in their skills, they end up shading painstakingly slow because you aren't afraid to go dark. You're just like afraid, or sorry, you are afraid to go dark, but you're not. It's less scary if you go little by little, right? It's less scary if you paint your values little by little by little. But then it ends up taking so long because you're doing it little by little by little. It's kind of like when I was, when I had my very first injury, I had a big burn on my leg, like spilled coffee, burning hot coffee on my leg. I had a cast over the leg and the cast kind of fused to my skin. This was when I was a kid. And I promise this story has context. And then my dad was at the hospital and he felt so bad for me and he just started ripping the cast off little by little by little, squirting water on it. But then it ended up extending the pain and the anxiety of it. He spent an hour, got the cast maybe like 2 inches off the cast, and both of us were just in pain. And then the nurse comes in And she literally just like rips the entire cast off, like the entire thing. My whole leg was in a cast. She just rips the whole thing off in one go, and it was extremely painful, but it was done in like 5 seconds. Right? So sometimes you just have to rip it off. Like sometimes you just have to do it quickly, and you will save a lot more time, even though it feels painful. So, cookie or biscuit, don't be afraid to go dark with your values. Like, even if we examine the values here, like, look up here at my color wheel, right? You can kind of see how dark these shadows are. They're almost black. And then if you look at the midtones are like exactly what they should be with midtones. And you can see the background color is lighter than the midtone. So the whole face should be in the midtone area, or slightly lighter than midtones. Okay, so you really only need 3 values to group everything to. So if I look at the paper value, right? Your paper value is already a midtone. So you don't actually need let's see, you have a lighter value here, so let's find like a kind of like a darker in between value, and let's just do 4, because you have the paper value. Okay, this is the paper value, and this is your highlight, and this is paper. These are your highlights, these are your shadows, and then these are your midtone. I'm just gonna call them M1 and M2. Okay, so most of your characters should be in your midtones. So this is what I mean when I say don't be afraid to go big. So the first thing I would say is to block in like the darkest parts first. So I'm just gonna kind of block in his hair, right? If you don't block it in, then you have no context for your other values. Like, your darkest darks aren't blocked in, which means you have nothing to compare it to. You're kind of going blind here. Everything looks dark because you don't have your darkest dark in here. So get that in quickly, like just get it in. It doesn't have to be detailed. It just needs to have your values. I'm also making his hair a little bit bigger. Again, we have a small cranium, which I think you can just fix by getting the hair in. Okay, so now that I got the hair in, now if you look at the values, of the eyebrow now, right? Now you have context, and now you're like, whoa, that is way too light. That is way too light. Right? You didn't know this before because you didn't have context. And so I just gave you the context by putting in your darkest darks first. And I always recommend this if you're in my classes. I always tell you to go to capture your darkest darks first, because without your darkest darks, you have no context for anything else. Now I can take the midtone and I can start to paint in everything else. So I can kind of paint in the nose is a little long, by the way, but I like the way you exaggerated the face, so I'm not going to change it. What I will do though is just show you how large you can go to shade stuff. Right, like if you're gonna do it with the lasso tool and like the fill tool, that's fine. But if you're gonna manually shade it, right, get that dark in first. I'm not really focusing too much on your proportions for this one. I'm just kind of showing you how to shade faster. Because I think the way you exaggerated the proportions and the face is kind of nice, right? Doesn't always have to look exactly like the person. So this is the first thing I would do, is get everything in, rip that band-aid off fast. You know what I mean? Use a big brush. Don't be scared. Also, we can sense when an artist is scared because their drawings look overworked. Whereas when you create fearlessly, the drawings look just perfect, but messy, but effortless. You know, have you ever seen really, really good work that just feels so effortless? It's not because there was less effort, it was just because the artist had more skills and more confidence to actually make it look effortless, you know? So once you have this in, then you can, you know, make the nose, like this part can be a little bit darker. Again, the eye socket here kind of looks like he's got a black eye, so let's go a little bit darker. And squint with me. I hope you're squinting so that you can kind of see the big picture. Right? Get all those details in nice and early. And then the eye is a little bit long. Again, I'm not going to repeat the same tip that I did with the last one, but remember to look for the peak of the eye so that it's in the right place. But it's mostly the values. Right? It's mostly what you want to focus on, and then you can get a little bit darker and a little bit darker. So you can see, like, I could probably have gone even darker, but once you just like work on blocking in your values, everything else becomes easier. So you block that in. This part is pretty dark, like right where the nose is really, really dark. And then you can kind of draw in the other eye. You don't even need too much detail with the other eye because it's in shadow. Like, even if you didn't draw the eye, I would still know that there's an eye there. You know what I mean? Like, I would still know. So. Let's see. He looks like an Oppenheimer character, I know. Yeah, the lips are too low. It's true, they are too low. But like I said, this guy has a very unique face, so I'm not really as I mean, I don't think it's the likeness per se that you're struggling with. Mostly I would think it's the shading. So don't be afraid to go dark. Right? Like, you're starting off just being too precious about it all, and then it just ends up looking too light, and because you didn't give yourself proper context. So make sure that you go dark first so that you give yourself that context. Efrat, welcome to the chat. My perfectionism makes it really difficult to draw without going over a tiny line that doesn't matter. Any tips? Perfectionism is, I think, common among artists. I definitely think that you can beat it. I was a perfectionist too. And I learned mostly through industry experience, through deadlines, and just through working with people, that sometimes, or most of the time, I'm going to say, done is better than perfect. On time is better than, like, good and on time is better than late and perfect. Sometimes what you think is perfect is actually very different from somebody else's idea of perfect. So make sure that you're not just spinning your wheels and like running the hamster wheel without actually knowing the expectations. If you are setting expectations for yourself, I think you need to set an expectation to focus on something that actually matters, something that's going to move the needle forward instead of perfectionism. So one of the ways you can beat it is you can zoom out. Zoom way out, like really, 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 really small, and judge it when it's a tiny, tiny size so you don't see any of the details that you don't need. So when I zoomed way out, I realized that his eye is in shadow. Like this eye here that you can see is on this side of his face is actually in shadow. Right? It's not light at all. Like it's all in shadow. And then I would use the darkest dark. I'm like, there's something wrong with it, and I can't put my finger on it. So sometimes you just need a fresh set of eyes. Tilt the canvas, mirror the canvas, show a friend, like do something to really help you get a fresh look at it. Right, so now that looks a little bit better. And even then, like the eyelid's a little bit long, right? I would actually end it and make it a little bit shorter. There's a lot of things you can do to improve the likeness, but I'm just kind of showing you how you can finish these portraits faster. And if you want tips on commissions or just like more strategies on ways you can improve your workflow, join our Discord. We often share resources and tools to kind of help you guys with this type of stuff with commissions. And we work with our students and our VIP students to make sure that speed is something that we can leverage, how to leverage speed so that you can be more profitable, and where you should focus your energy when you're working. So yeah, now I kind of want to repaint him. I want to like do more, but I'm just gonna end this here so we don't take up more time. Like the lips should be darker. Right? Once you get the big picture in, then everything else is easier because you have that context. Yeah. Cool. So thank you for submitting, Cookie or Biscuit. I hope this was helpful. Let's do a before and after so you can see the difference. So before, you really just weren't going dark enough and probably taken you a really, 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 really long time. And what I did was I just kind of simplified the values, forced myself to group them, and then just painted with a humongous brush. Just to give you an idea of how big the brush was, it was probably like this size. Yeah, right, that size. That's the size of the brush you should be using. So, thank you, Cookie or Biscuit, for submitting. Okay, so who is next? I'm going to put you. You're gonna be Cobb, Cookie or Biscuit. Okay, next we have Altandri. Altandri, hello, hello. All right. Oh, one more thing I realized is for the last one, sorry, Altandri, 1 second. I realized that once I took the grayscale filter off, that it doesn't actually work with your piece, because I worked in grayscale just so we wouldn't have to worry about color, because color is often not your issue. Like if you're struggling with color, like 90% of the time you're actually struggling with value and not color, and that's what you were struggling with. You were struggling with values. However, if you did want to translate this into color, like let's say I take that grayscale filter off, right? You can actually very quickly color in this with just the gray. So let me show you what I mean. If I opened up this part, and let's say I just selected the skin tone, or just like the parts outside of the hair, like right here. Let's say I just select this part and I want to add color to it, right? What you can do, there's a couple things you could do. You could darken it. Oh, well, sorry, that's not going to work because it's in grayscale. Let me just create a new layer. And what I'm going to do is make a layer for adjustment, for coloring. So let's say you wanted like a warmer color. So let's say I choose like a reddish, kind of reddish brown color, kind of like that. Right? More so like this. And then I just use a big brush and I paint it in like this. Okay, let's say I just like paint it in. And then what you can do is you can go under here and go color. And I painted it very roughly so you can see how it affects the colors of the lights and the darks. But you can just turn that grayscale layer into, you can add color to it by just creating an adjustment layer for color. And then I can like choose the opacity of it. So just because you paint something in grayscale, it doesn't actually mean that you can't use it for color, because once you have the right value, then you can just make some tiny adjustments and bring it back to that color realm. You could even adjust the colors. So let's say you want to go a little bit pinker, right? You can then just kind of hue shift it towards the red. Let's say you want to give him pinker cheeks. Then you can actually do that by just painting on the pink. See what I mean? So like I'm like adjusting the color of his nose all the way down here, making it slightly more red. So yeah, you can affect the color pretty easily by just using a color layer on top. World of KRS, I can't wait till I save enough to actually join a class soon. I'd love to see you in the classes. Actually, our figure drawing intensives are starting next week. I think those would be really, really good for you, because if you can draw figures easily out of your head, everything else is easy. Everything else is super, super easy. Jack fell down. The shadows need a bit more saturation. Yeah, you're totally right on that. They actually even need to be darker. But you can adjust the saturation and the darkness using adjustment layers or color layers. So I can, like, for example, color in his mouth and make it more red, right? Give his nostrils more redness. Give his ears more redness. Look at that, right? So lots you can do here. Okay, now we're really done. I felt like I had to address the color issue because you did send your submission in color, and I lost track of that. Okay. Thank you very much, Cookie or Biscuit, for submitting your artwork and letting all of us learn from you. So thank you, thank you. Is the class on school or in the Discord? The summer intensives are through Google Meet, and you would have to register for them. For our regular classes are on school. Yeah. We do have critiques on the Discord, but our regular classes are, you can join through school, and there are 2 tiers. You can take it asynchronously or live. Okay. So, this one, who is this? This is Altandri. Altandri! Nice to see you. I haven't seen your work before. You say, your style is a bit cartoonish, but I struggle with head anatomy, so no matter how realistic I go... you struggle with head anatomy no matter how realistic you try to go. You also hate drawing mouths. They're always just a line. I hear you. I hear you. This is actually a really cute character. I think it's super, super cute. I think it's actually, I love the way you drew the eyes. I think everything is like in the right place. It looks pretty good. And I think you're in a good place right now. So let me just make a few adjustments and suggestions to help you level up this drawing. So now I'm on to the people who did not include references. So I'm just guessing here, okay? If you didn't send me a reference, then there's a few of you who didn't send a reference. I'm just gonna guess based on what I see and based on my visual library of what you could change. So first of all, I am going to change the nose and add some stuff to the eyes. Your eyes are super bright, and that's okay if you're going to be a little bit cartoony, but most of the times our eyes have shadows on the top. Most of the time our eyes have shadows on the top, and that's because our eyelids actually cast a shadow. So what I would do is, instead of making your eyes white, I would actually make them like a shade of gray. It actually looks a lot more believable, and it's just kind of based off of realism, so it just kind of makes your designs feel a little bit more realistic. Right? Because it can be cartoony, but it can still be based on realism. So what I did there is I just added a shadow to the eye. And you'll see this done a lot with anime. You'll see it kind of done even in cartoons. There's like a little bit of that shadow. I think that will help. The other thing I would recommend doing is not drawing really dark lines for the bottom of the eyes. Usually speaking, like, it's fine to draw darker lines on the top, but when you start to draw darker lines on the bottom, it either makes your character look very tired, or it just kind of makes it look too outlined. So what I would actually do is concentrate your line art on the top and just kind of reduce the line art on the bottom. Just like the lines on the bottom can be a lot less, and that's going to actually make the eyes feel more 3D because it doesn't have huge lines that flatten it out. Right? So I would remove the line on the bottom. You can have a little bit of a line on the bottom, like it doesn't hurt to add a little bit for lashes or whatever, but generally speaking, like you can add a little bit, but I wouldn't put it everywhere. Like I wouldn't go too dark, but you can on the top. Like the top eye can go a little bit darker. Okay, so that's one thing I would do. The nose the nose right now is a little weird because you don't see, like, I'm assuming these are the nostrils. I think they're the nostrils, but they're kind of in the wrong place. So let's redo the nose. Yeah, if you add gray in the eyes, it definitely looks a lot more convincing. Because if you take a close look at eyeballs, you'll notice that they don't usually have, they're not usually white at all. They're more of like the value of the skin. The other thing I would do here is I would probably the shadow of the eyes would also affect the top of the eye. So you see how I made everything darker at the top? Well, it would also affect the iris color. So I'm just going to go a little bit darker, because the shadows have to kind of carry forward. So I would do that. You can also give her a little bit of a
like an actual pupil. I think that'll make her feel more human. Because the eyes are our window to the soul. Right? So we want to try to make them as big and as bright as we possibly can. Oh, that looks pretty good. Okay, and then how to make the nose darker. So you don't actually have any shadows, you kind of just have blush. So let's choose a shadow color. Let's be more intentional about this shadow color. And we can make it less saturated, but let's give her a bottom plane. Let's just draw like a little triangle here for the bottom of her nose. If you feel like that's too dark, you can go a little bit lighter. Like here, there's already a bit more structure. All I did was just draw the bottom of her nose. That's it. The mouth can be done the same way. You can kind of just draw the top lip. And instead of doing it black, like consider making it maybe a little bit more reddish. And you can give her nostrils if you really want. Although it kind of makes her look a little pig-like. Given the big ears, so you may not need it, right? If you did want to draw nostrils, you can. Although you probably want to think of like the ball and shield, and then you can start to soften the nose, right? You can start to kind of break up the lines a little bit, get that ball back, that ball shape back. And I would also caution against outlining the nose in black. Like I would actually just like not outline it in black and just bring it down a little bit to make it feel more natural. And use a reference, right? I don't know if you're going for a more realistic nose or whatnot, but use reference. If you're not sure, try to find a pose in the same type of light. The mouth is also a little crooked, so you know, wherever the corner is, assuming her head isn't tilted, it would go up like this. And again, those of you in the chat, if you're watching and you have any suggestions for Altandri, please let them know, because I'm sure that everybody has something valuable that they can bring to the table. I do agree that the mouth is a little low, but you know what? I'm gonna leave it because I kind of like the character that it adds. I was gonna move it, but I'm like, you know what? We don't need to. Let's just focus on the shading. Usually under the bottom lip there is some shadow, so you probably want to give her a little bit of a shadow under the mouth. And she looks really cute, actually. Very cute. So the eyebrows, again, we kind of talked about it. If you weren't here for the eyebrows part, go back to the first example. We have eyebrows that are doing this. Oh, sorry, not the first example. It was with Skyler's example. Remember that the eyebrow peaks 2/3 of the way towards the outside, and they're not just a perfect curve. So what I would do to fix your eyebrows is actually shape them a little bit more so that they feel more natural, and they're peaking in the right place. Peaking as in P-E-A-K, peaking. Not like peekaboo peeking. You can also make the top of her eye a little bit darker, like within here. So let's go back to the shadow color. Again, this depends on how realistic you want to go. But you could kind of make the top part a little bit darker if you wanted to add more values or more shading to it. Like you could You could kind of darken the top of the eyes a little bit if you're going for more of a cell shaded look. And then you can kind of darken the cheek if you wanted to, or like this side of the cheek. But I'm just going to leave it for now because I kind of like the simple flat style that you have. Not sure if the artist is in the chat, but some other suggestions. Maybe make the ear a little smaller. Yeah, you could definitely try that and see how that works. I would also try to get a good reference for the ear because it has a lot more detail, and in this simplified way, it almost makes it feel too cartoony and too basic. But I personally like the size of the ears. I like the shape of the ears. Jack Fell Down says, for the nose, you assume it's a pyramid, and the nostrils in the middle part are 3 triangular flaps folding and connecting to the face. That's a good way to think about it, for sure. And Efrat had a question, is art school worth it? We actually did an entire Q&A stream, and we made a video about, is art school worth it? And I talk about it in that video. So if you go to the channel and you just look, if you go to Wing Canvas and you just search for the truth about art schools, I think it was one of the videos that we released earlier this year. I do talk about it. Is art school worth it? It depends. I definitely think it was worth it. But it depends on what kind of art school. Like, in a nutshell, art schools are very expensive. So if you want to seek some alternatives, like for example at Wing Canvas, we're an alternative to traditional art school. And we work with some of our some people who really want to go higher level, who want to, improve their artwork to the degree where they can start to take commissions, where they can start to monetize their art. And so no, you don't have to go to a traditional art school. It was very expensive. It was the route that I personally did because I didn't have a choice. Simply because I did not have access to alternatives. Whereas nowadays, there's so many different alternatives. So I think if you think it's worth it, then it's worth it. If you're not sure, then it's probably not right now. However, you can get a lot more value for what you want to do by looking for alternatives, because ultimately what art school gets you is a shiny piece of paper and really strong fundamentals, right? So you don't actually need that shiny piece of paper to get work. Your experience matters more, your experience and your skill level. So I just did a little bit of redrawing on the ears just to kind of make it less, a little bit more natural by making the lines not black. So here's the, whoop, where's my draw over? Here it is. See, I was talking, got distracted, and then I drew on top of your ears. I drew on the wrong layer. But anyway, here's the before and the after. Minus the ears. I put a little bit of shadow under the chin as well, because that's where the majority of the shadows should be. Catching up with the chat. When it comes to drawing for straighter hair in a 3/4 view, how do you make it look more natural? We have some hair modules and hair videos on the channel. You can give those a watch. We have tons of hair classes in school, so even if you join the 7-day free trial, you try it out for 7 days and you can probably learn the hair in that time. Yeah, so we're gonna move on to the next person. So thank you, Altandri, for sharing and for submitting your artwork. It takes a lot of guts to put yourself out there, and I hope to see you on the server. I think this is a really, really cute character. Okay, so I'm gonna quickly like rapid fire through the other selects, simply because I thought these were really good contenders, but you guys didn't give me anything to work from. So Ether, I think this is a really terrific portrait, really good start so far. I really like the shapes, like you're actually working in grayscale, you're breaking down the shapes, and you're kind of approaching it with shapes instead of lines. So I think this is really, really good. I think you're on the right track. I think you need to simplify it a little bit more, actually a lot more. I think because I can't actually see the reference. But I can kind of tell you that like this part of the face is way too complicated, and you probably want to simplify the cheek a lot more. Oh, Ether Rose, it's you. You're in the chat. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I don't know what your original reference is, but I definitely think that you are approaching it the right way. However, I think you're kind of overcomplicating it. So a couple things that you could do to move the needle a little bit faster is, first of all, I just simplify this, like just get rid of it all. And just like, I think you're just kind of seeing too much stuff and trying to capture all of it. So zoom out and focus more on big picture. So I'm gonna clean up the cheek. I feel like the cheekbone is a little bit high. Usually the side of the face, and you can check this with your original, usually the side of the face is like this. This is where the eyebrows are, right? This is like the peak of the eyebrows. And then the eye socket actually has a bit of a bend, right? So the eye socket would be like over here, and then the cheek happens here. So this is the cheek. This is the eyebrow. This is the cheekbone. So I think anatomy wise, you're kind of missing that, and so it's looking a little strange. So let's make this a little wider, and then that can come in, and then the cheekbone would probably be a little bit lower. So I think I actually think that the reference could be tricking you a little bit in that sense, but I would bring the cheekbone down. The eye feels a little bit too long for this view, like this 3/4 view, so I would look at ways to shorten this eye in particular. And then lips, I think I talked about this already, but the fastest way you could probably move the needle is paint in the underside of the nose, whatever that looks like make it obvious. Do I see the bottom of the nose or do I not see the bottom of the nose? And then for the lips, I know you hate drawing lips. Let's see what you said about the lips. You said you don't really know how to go from grayscale to color without repainting the whole thing. I think I showed you how to colorize, right? I think I showed you that. So if you want to color the grayscale version, just create a color layer and color on top of it. I think that would be the fastest way for you to do that. Meanwhile, I didn't mean to give him lipstick. This is way too red. But, see, everything's about color context, right? I put that on and I'm like, whoa, that's way too red. Whereas if it was somebody else's submission, it might have worked. But make that upper lip darker and then put a bit of a shadow on that bottom lip. You can make that bottom lip a little bit redder. But, and then like his hair looks a little lopsided. Maybe it's that way in the reference. Like I'm guessing it's like that in the reference, but it actually looks a little weird. So sometimes you have to move away from the reference a little bit. But I would kind of build his hair up a little bit higher and fix his forehead. I'm guessing he has a big widow's peak and it's kind of like that. I'm just guessing here, but maybe it's like that. Did the ref not go through? No, I don't think so. Oh, maybe. Let me just double check your submission if it did go through. No, it didn't. No, I only have the 2 drawings. But anyway, I would make those changes and then make the eyes a little bit darker at the top. So like whatever the eye shape is, like don't be afraid to make it dark at the top. Okay. Because that really anchors your eyes and it really helps you get more kind of definition into the face. I have a feeling the eyebrows kind of go up like this and kind of follow the look of his anxiety. He's a little worried here, but I don't know for sure. So there you go. Yeah, I think that I as well, like I often will draw the mouth too low, and I see this for a lot of people. It's actually pretty common to draw the mouth too low. So luckily it's pretty easy to fix. And the last thing I'm going to do is just kind of create more of a definition underneath the chin here and like make your shadows a little bit darker so that even though it's beard and then more beard on the neck, or I actually don't know if that's beard on the neck or if that's a shadow on the neck. So it's important to make that distinction. And then you probably want to make the chin a little bit more, a little bit longer. Right. Give him a little bit more of a chin. Makes him look more manly. His ear is teeny tiny, like those are like baby ears. So let's make his ears a little bit bigger, right? Like ears should align with your eyebrows and your nose, and generally the corner of the eye should also align with the corner of your nose. So I have a feeling that the eye and either the nose needs to be bigger or the eye needs to move over, but they should kind of align somewhat, right? So check those proportions out. Here's a quick before and after. I'm just kind of like following your lead here. You're a chronic mouth too low, eyes too high person. Yeah, me too. But you did a really, really good job. And thanks again for submitting, Ether Rose. No worries if you didn't submit your reference. There were a couple other people that I selected. I'm actually surprised at how many people we got through. But Magnetica, you submitted this. I really wanted to do a head angles from the top, but unfortunately we are out of time, and I would love to see the reference that you use for this so that I'm making sure I'm giving you like the proper my proper recommendations. So if you want to resubmit this in the digital art channel, or sorry, not the digital art channel, on the Get Critiques channel on our server, whoops, you can join our Discord and just post your artwork in Get Critiques. It's automatically going to create a thread. And if you're watching this, you can and you were selected, but you either want to post an update or want to post your reference, you can tag me on the server. Normally I don't allow people to tag me, but if you were selected, Magnetica, you can tag me, Ether, you can tag me with your reference, and I'll do my best to see if I can help. All right? All right, guys. Yes, let's see. Jack fell down. A good rule I follow for general face proportions is that the bottom of the bottom lip should be about halfway down the nose and the chin. Thank you for sharing that. That's true. Usually I would say that the opening of the mouth is like probably 1/3 of the way between the bottom of the nose and the bottom of the chin. So most people will just put the opening of the mouth like exactly in between the nose and the chin, and it looks a little weird, right? So it's more like the bottom lip is in the middle. So that is a good tip. Thank you for sharing. And thank you for everybody who submitted their artwork and for showing up. Thank you for letting all of us learn through you. And if you want to get personalized feedback on your artwork or portfolio guidance, that's exactly what we do in our VIP and mentorship programs. And we stream twice a week to help you learn your art fundamentals. So if you want that accountability, personalized feedback, or career guidance, start off by joining our Discord. We have lots of amazing resources on there. Otherwise, you can join us on School, !School, and you can try out our classes unlimited for 7 days. We have a 7-day free trial. You can check that out and give it a try. And I will see you guys for the next one. Before I forget, I don't think I did submissions this week because all of these are submissions, but normally we have challenges, monthly challenges on the Discord. And this month's challenge is over now because June is almost over, but July we have a new monthly challenge, and it's going to be mastering mood. So if you have any moody pieces, or you have any pieces where you are experimenting with the color to really work on the mood, submit it for a chance to be featured on our streams. So you guys are getting this early. Everybody else will know in our upcoming newsletter. But you can start preparing your submissions, and if you don't know what to draw, then you can try to master your mood this month for the challenge. All right, guys. I had a blast with you all. We will see you in July. Have a great 4th of July and Canada Day, and we will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.